Welcome back to Artificial Intelligence Real Talk, the Curiosity Connection. And today my curiosity definitely been piqued by the guests that I have. I found on LinkedIn, as you're finding and noticing the trend here, a lot of my guests, I have found them on LinkedIn. I've connected with them. I've spoken with them through direct messages. Some people are silly enough to give me their phone numbers and let me text message them. But through all those connections, I learned so many valuable things. And this guest, every post that he has, I don't know, it's the way he writes it, way he puts them together, and the wonderful imagery that goes along with them. I'm just like, I need to think a little bit deeper about that. And ironically, that is his big message for AI and education, is we need to think a little bit more deeply about that. So I'd like to welcome to the show today, Doan Winkel. Doan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
So I'm going to jump straight in. You very recently started something with one of my favorite people on LinkedIn, Mike Kentz,
Yeah.
and you jumped and started AI Friction Labs. First of all, amazing name.
Yeah.
So tell me, what does it do? What is the purpose? What was the whole thing there?
Yeah. So it's work that Mike was doing as part of his graduate work, and he really had gotten the ball rolling and was pretty far along. He and I just collided and I loved what he was doing. And I bring a lot of entrepreneurship, business acumen to the table. And so we just kind of connected up on it. And I thought I can help with this. And, it's something that is exciting to me and I believe in and everything. So, it's if you think about it at a very simple level, it's trying to use AI to create friction
Okay.
instead of it being helpful. So helpful AI is not really good for students and for learning, right? And so it's purposely trying to create friction with students using AI. And, you know, think of it like we're a custom build shop. We work with the teacher, high school, college, whatever, get to know their classes, and we create, it's like a simulated experience, right? And so students go into a conversation and they're having a conversation, but there's a lot of layers to it. So it's not just the typical text. There's little things we do where students are getting a sense of how the AI character is actually moving or doing things or
Okay.
feeling. And so it's a little bit more engaging. And you can ratchet up the friction levels or not. I've had students of mine who responded that they actually wanted to commit acts of violence against the person because they were so frustrated. So I mean, it's fun. And from a teacher's perspective, I can look at that and I can see a lot better of, like, how are these students, in my world, how are they practicing a skill? How are they improving at a skill? And, I can assign these things multiple times, for instance. So I could do something beginning of semester, middle of semester, end of the semester, and I can start to almost chart, hey, Alan has sucked at this at the beginning and now is doing a lot better at this and all that kind of thing. So, and we're, it's a startup, right? So we're always adding bells and whistles. We're relaunching it in the fall to give the teachers a lot more out of it, right? And so doing some work where the teacher will have tools at their disposal to identify within the conversations, like, here's the really good things that happen and here's where there were really problems. So we don't not want the teacher reading full transcripts, but I mean, sometimes these students, like I've had students who they have 60 interactions in conversation. If I've got 50 kids who are doing 50 interactions each, that's a lot to do, right? And so we just, we're doing little things like that. So it's a lot of fun. It's hard work, as any startup is. It's a lot of fun. We're working with a lot of high schools and colleges and just kind of beta testing stuff and having people kick tires on it.
No,
So
I mean, that's just as a premise, the idea of adding friction back in, right? I think that as soon as I saw it, I was a little biased because I already knew Mike's work.
Yeah.
I had worked with him, with his, AI literacy partners, and he and I and a little ragtag group of his friends created, sample lessons that was focused on that idea of how can a teacher implement AI in a lesson where the AI isn't just helper, like you said, a helpful AI.
Right.
And he always I remember him distinctly for being the sparring partner
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
That I feel like that was his big catchphrase there, AI as the sparring partner. And so when I saw that you two got together, I was like, oh, this is like a match made in heaven. That's why I was like, man, these two go together. This is like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
They go together. I was like, and so building something like that, seeing how the students are interacting with that, like in this world now where like the students, teachers, everybody's inundated with the free versions of tools,
Mm-hmm.
or even like the education version of tools or whatever. How does a student, like, I'm probably not going to word this right, but how does a student decide to use AI that way to reintroduce friction? Like, do you think that like most students would use it to introduce friction, or is that
No.
something that probably is going to have to go through school or class?
Yeah, no.
Right?
No, they wouldn't do
Yeah.
that. But I think that's, to the point of teachers and our roles and things, and everybody's got different opinions here, whatever. But, if I look at the role of a teacher and I say part of my role is to develop experience pathway so that students can learn, right? In my discipline and the way I look at things, it's very skill-based. It's very mastery learning. That's my preference and that's my belief.
Yeah.
And so if I look at it and I say, how do I get students to practice skills, right?
Yes.
You don't learn how to play soccer or play the saxophone or fly an airplane without struggling at it.
Right.
No,
so
you have to have that in there. And we all know that. I mean, it's common sense, but it doesn't seem to be common sense with this for a lot of
No.
Right.
No. And that's so I'm now going like episodes down the road here because my previous guest that I had on, he was a very hard no altogether about AI. So he teaches rhetoric, AP language. So it's higher level in the high school that he teaches at. And what he exactly what you described, the skills, teaching skills, mastery based. He went through the process over the last, I think he said it was the last like 5 or 6 years of his class, like before COVID happened. He went through the whole ungrading.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of ungrading in his classroom. So there's no points. It's here's the standards that you have to meet or the skills that you have to showcase.
Yeah.
And the students would submit evidence to showcase something they've done throughout the coursework in the readings or in the work that they've been doing, pulling artifacts from things that they've been doing along the way to say, hey, here's my piece of evidence that I met this standard or that I have reached the standard and here's my justification, so on and so forth. What he's seeing, especially in the last 2 years, is that he said about 50% of his students using AI for all the parts of that, creating the artifacts, pulling from the work that they're doing, whether they're doing the work themselves or not, pulling it and using that as the artifact, and even using AI to do the reflective piece of it.
I would say he's probably underestimating that number.
And again, I would imagine, but and I love it how he came to this, but he recognized that there was a student who did this in multiple classes, and he approached it in the way that I try to teach people not to approach it. and he openly admitted, he was like, I was wrong in how I did this. But, they essentially came to the student and was like, do you think we're dumb? Like, do you think that we don't recognize that you're doing this? And he said, I knew it. It was wrong. And he said, her answer stuck with me forever. She said, you never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
The teacher never even crossed my mind. And he told me that was kind of shocking for him to hear. It was like, this has nothing to do with me, with like, it's just, I can, and I think he went on to tell the story of like, she said like, I needed to get this thing done, or I needed to do this assignment. It was a task and I needed to do it. This could do it quickly.
Right.
And it's done. And so with him, he's like, for me, in what I teach and how I teach, this is like the most unuseful thing in the universe.
Mhm.
I've been trying so hard to like chip away at the statue
Yeah.
by saying things. And essentially what you created at AI Friction Labs was something that I kind of floated to him, a different version, you know, like just not as definitely not as intense, but just that idea of saying like your students having a conversation with this chatbot that is set up this specific way could be the same evidence that you are looking for, and the AI won't give them the answer, but it will talk them through, and that whole chat is your evidence right there. But just that idea of you know, because I think the part that he's struggling with, and I think a lot of teachers in K-12 and higher ed are struggling with, is like, you could set up everything the right way. You could have AI literacy lessons from, you know, kindergarten, developmentally appropriate, unplugged activities all the way through 6th grade. You start to introduce maybe something like a school-friendly, student-facing chatbot, just to get them practice of what that looks like in a you know, what do they call it, a walled garden environment. You could do all of that and build all the skills, and with people as brilliant, you know, as you and Mike and everyone leading the way, and you still will have students who are like, but it's an easy button. It's like the Staples easy button, right? Like, make it easy.
Yeah.
And so how do you reconcile with that?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is everything I approach, everything I build, you know, courses, lesson plans, assignments, whatever. I think about it in terms of like, how do I incorporate AI into it's a part of the process, right? It just becomes a natural thing. And in such a way where the students aren't thinking of it as a natural way to get the answer, but are thinking of it as a natural way to practice, right? And that's a
Yeah,
big difference.
I agree. I
And
agree.
because whatever level of school you want to think about, you know, when you're a student, you're sitting in 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever classes, and there is no chance I want to be a student nowadays because I've got, you know, college. I've got 6 teachers telling me 6 wildly different things. Most of them are operating in gray areas, so I have absolutely no clue what's
Right.
okay and what's not and what are the limits. And I got to navigate that with
Yeah.
6 different teachers each semester. Like, I mean, the anxiety's got to be through the roof for these kids. And so for
Yeah.
me, that's why I go, it's all like, yeah, it's fair game. Let's go. And I'm not going to not only say you can use it, I'm going to try to show you ways that you can use it that are responsible, that are productive, that are transferable to jobs after college, because I'm in the
Yes.
college space.
Yeah.
Um, and I just think that they can breathe a sigh of relief for the 50 or 75 minutes they're with me, you know, a couple
Yeah.
times a week.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's part of it is approaching it and saying, what is it you're trying to do? You know, even in a like my strongest battles come from English teachers.
Yeah. I'm
I
sure. I'm sure.
and I enjoy it because I like to see like, okay, how are you thinking? And it helps me to understand like how are other people thinking this. And I just kind of look at it and I go, all right, cool. Like what what skills are you trying to train these kids in? Right. And I get away from the whole learning objective thing because that's just,
Mhm.
you know,
Jargon,
it's jargon and it's all
buzzwords.
generic that nobody can actually measure. You know, but it's like what
Mhm.
skills and you know, great, you teach rhetoric. Like what are the 3, 4 skills you want these kids learning? And I go, cool.
Mhm.
Like how are you having them practice that and how are you having them learn that now? And then go, hey, just like you said, like here's a way that you might be able to layer this thing in. And I go, why don't on Tuesday, like why don't you try this? Like just to be open with your students, be like, I hate this stuff. I don't want this stuff here. We're gonna try something today and let's just see how it goes. Right. I think the students will appreciate the honesty and the transparency.
Yes.
B,
Yes.
you just kind of get an idea of like how did that feel? How did it feel for the students? How did it feel for you? Like what did the work look like? Maybe you still hate it and you don't want to do it. Cool. But you've tried
Yeah.
something different and you're not just making these assumptions based on ignorance because you
Yeah.
haven't tried things, you know?
Yeah. No, and I'm glad that you put it that. I mean, because there is a certain amount of risk taking, right?
Oh, for sure.
From the teacher perspective as well. And I think like he's worried about, and rightfully so, he's worried about credibility.
Sure.
You know, at the end of the day, what I try to do, and just like you said, I try to like find that opening, find that small opening. And I'm glad you said that, because every session that I do, that I've done in my new job here, where, you know, I'm going out and working with multiple districts. So I work for an intermediate unit. I don't know what they're called in your state, usually educational service agencies, but they're, you know, they do a specific region of the state.
Yeah.
And so pretty much anything the State Department of Education has, it filters down through these, you know, intermediate units or service agencies. So my job, like literally, I'm the first person here who's like AI focused.
Mm-hmm.
And the communities, most of our communities are very rural.
Yeah.
So it's a hard sell.
Sure.
But what I've seen happen over the last, especially the last year, is that frustration. Kids are using this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting it to do all their work for them. You know, I never say these things out loud, but I think them in my head. I'm like, well, what are you changing? Like,
yeah, that's what I tell
you
people.
doing
I
different?
go, well, then that's on you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, in the college space, and acknowledging college is very different from K-12. Like in the
Yes.
college space, that's my domain. I'm in charge. And if I'm recognizing that students are figuring out workarounds, I can either choose to accept it, or I can choose to adjust to incorporate those workarounds, or to battle those workarounds. I choose not to
Yeah.
battle. It's a losing battle.
Yeah.
So I choose not to do that, you know. But that's your choice. That's what I always tell people. And I go, it's a choice you got to make, and whatever you make, you know. But I go, why would you not? I just don't understand. Why would you not make a choice that's in the best interest of the student?
Right. No, I agree with that. And that's what I think. I think where a lot of the schools in my region are, be a little more open-minded, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And it's why my job even exists. And so we are a bit behind. I mean, there's schools that are already, you know, running AI literacy programs. It's already integrated into their lessons and things like that. But I made an argument, made a point a while ago on my work podcast, that I think it's okay that some schools took it slow.
Oh, for sure.
Because you can, it's like, I imagine, like, you know, the scene from Leo DiCaprio's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's sitting on the couch, you know, eating popcorn, and then his commercial, hey. So, you know, you're sitting back and watching, and you get to see mistakes that people have made.
Yeah.
You get to watch the Los Angeles school district fail miserably with a chatbot,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
And it was
absolutely.
like, maybe that wasn't the direction to go in. Maybe that wasn't the best choice to do. And so that's the argument I make, is like, you know, yeah, sure, people will say we're behind, but now you have learned from their mistakes, and now we can kind of build something on our own.
Right.
And I love how you said, like, the AI friction labs, you know, we customize, you know, with the teachers you're talking to. That's our tagline here at the IU8. Customized
Yes.
learning solutions.
Well, and that's a part of, I mean, that's such a huge part of the possibility here, right? Is that has all of a sudden very quickly become much more possible to do. District level, at a school level, at a student level, right? And that, to me, again, that's part of why I go, just play around with it, try it out. Like, it, you know,
Yeah.
again, if you're still scared of it, or you don't believe it, or you just want to dismiss it, cool. But at least give it a shot before you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's what I think, you know, my wife followed a similar path. You know, I went down the rabbit hole in the summer of 2023, and every day I was learning something new. Like, oh my, did you know it could do this? Did you know it did this? Like a month in, she was like, could you talk about anything else? Like literally anything else? Like, I would love to hear about the paint drying in the front room that you're painting. I'd love to hear about that more than hearing about AI, you know? And she was like, go make TikToks so that you can tell them and don't tell me again. And so I was reborn on LinkedIn there at that moment. But she now is on like technology committees for the Pennsylvania Bar Association. She's helping with like AI policies and AI discussions in her company that she works for. And so she's like a voice that's kind of a little bit leading the way
Yeah.
for lawyers. And but it's even that whole idea of I'm resistant, I don't want to hear about this. And all it took for her was was curiosity. Again, curiosity,
Right.
right? I wonder what this could do in my job. And I don't know about you, but I always tell people, what is like the most boring or like mundane, painful task that you do
Yeah.
in your job?
Yeah.
And I'm like, see if AI can do that so that you can do the more valuable tasks
Right.
of your job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
The other thing I tell people sometimes, especially the ones who really kind of push back, in addition to that, is I go, also, what are you best at?
oh,
Like, where does your
oh,
expertise really, really, really shine through? Because if you do something where, you know, you have the greatest expertise and you play around with it, you're going to be able to very, very quickly evaluate what happened.
yes,
And so I go like,
yes,
try both, and you'll just start to see, and because and I mean, it's not perfect. There's problems, whatever. And if I'm playing around with something I don't really know about, it's harder for me to spot some of those issues. But if I play around with something I know better than anybody, I'm spotting them
mm-hmm.
right out of the gate, right? And so, so that's like with a lot of these English folks or history folks, I get a lot of pushback too. Those kind of people, I go, where's your point of like super, super expertise? And play around with something right there and just
Yeah,
see what it does, right? And it gives you at least a little bit of a level of confidence of it sucked, it's decent, it's
right.
amazing, whatever.
Right. You have a bar, right? You have like a
Yes.
measuring bar here
Yeah.
of where it stands based on what you do. That's it. Again, like I'm so glad you said that, because that connects very well to something she's doing now. The biggest program they use in her law office, it's a legal server database that has all the case law and all. So you could search, by topic or by case, however, and you could get the case law that you need.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, these companies now, like a lot of companies, have added AI into that. Okay. So this one was Westlaw. And the idea here is that within the database, you could essentially put in, and of course they have all the enterprise protections and security and data and all that with legal issues and all that abound. You can put in your cases, your case notes, your thing and all that, and it will help you find the right cases, maybe pull counter arguments on things that you might not be thinking of or did think of, or help you develop a little bit more. But it's more than just searching for the case law and citing it.
Yeah.
It could help you based on the context of your case and the case law that you're trying to use. It could also, like, this is very much where the Friction Labs ties in. It acts as the opposing counsel,
Yeah.
and it will say, here's counter arguments, or here's counterpoints, and here's what you need to do. And so one of the use cases, like, her and I did a training for our like the county bar, and that was one of the things that one of the lawyers took away. Showed them the whole basic thing, which I don't even know if it's good advice anymore, but the whole give the AI a role, make it an expert in something. I don't
Yeah.
even know if that matters anymore.
Right.
But he told me, like, he was messing around with AI, just trying to, like, could it do briefs? Could it do like this or whatever? As soon as he put in that, prompt at the beginning, he said it completely changed the output that I got.
Yeah.
And it was a million times better with just that small change. And ever since that moment, that guy has gone wild.
Right.
And he's like, any of these legal programs that have AI involved, I am buying them 100% because I see the value in it.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think, I would hope that even as lawyers, as teachers, as, college professors, the goal of these programs isn't to, like, outsource your thinking.
Right.
The goal is to help you do more.
Yeah.
I would argue.
Yeah. Well, and that gets back to the design of it all, right? And as teachers, that's our job. I can say I come from a business discipline. I got a PhD in a business discipline. I've taught in a business discipline. I never got 1 ounce of training for my job, but,
Yeah.
but they pay me a lot of money and they give me a job for life with zero
Yeah.
training. Um,
Who said I'm
yeah,
allowed to do this? Who said it was okay?
yeah. But part of it is looking at it and saying, how do I design this experience, right?
Mhm.
And how do the things that I have at my disposal fit into that design so that my students can develop the thinking and develop the skills. And we choose what we want to use, right? If you want to use business cases, you want to use projects, you want to use AI, there's all these things you can choose. And it's just being thoughtful of like, how do you integrate these things into here so that you can create a richer, more engaging, and more robust learning experience for these kids to develop like deeper, more robust thinking and skills. I mean, that's my approach to it. And that's why I see so much value with this stuff, because it
Yeah.
really just helps to skyrocket it all.
Yeah. And I know the story I share quite often is I was a very old school teacher.
Mm.
And I feel like a lot of people, you go into teaching and you kind of teach how you were taught,
Sure.
So very old school, explicit instruction, direct instruction. Here's the knowledge. Let's practice it together. And, let's do a quiz or whatever,
Yeah.
formative assessment, summative assessment, whatever. But the stories you remember are those amazing projects.
Mhm.
I still remember every project I did from like fourth grade on.
Right.
I did a circulatory system project when I was in fourth grade, and I still remember the heck out of doing that thing,
Yep.
And so that idea, the whole idea of kind of redesigning how we do things. I think you've talked about this before, but I'm kind of curious about it. Like a ceiling. Is there a ceiling to the redesign process? Like, is there a place where there's a limit
No.
to how we can redesign things?
No.
And I bring that up because based on our last point we made a little while ago, like if all the right pieces are in place and you've designed this wonderful thing and they still choose to outsource completely, not using it in the way you have designed for it to be used, then where does that I would assume that rests on the student because these are adults.
Again, obviously higher ed's different. My perspective on higher ed is always, I mean, I have a job to do. I'm paid to do a job,
Yeah.
but I have customers sitting in front of me. Those customers are paying a lot of money to be there.
Yeah.
They have a choice and they have autonomy in what happens to their experience. I set up the experience. I invite them into the experience. I will guide them through the experience. But at the end of the day, they have a choice. And if they choose to screw around with it or not give a shit about it or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I tell them all the time, I go, look, I got to be here. I'm going to be here. You're paying a lot of money. You don't want to be here. I doesn't hurt my feelings. You're going to have to probably explain that to somebody, but that's on you, right?
Yeah. You have to explain it to somebody, not necessarily me, but
Correct.
you're going to have to explain it to somebody.
Correct.
So,
and choices have consequences. And so, but part of it is I can now do things that are much more customized and personalized to the students so that they see even more value in being there, right? And they see they're more engaged, they more want to show up. And these kind of tools have enabled me to do more of that. And so they show up. They show up with a better perspective, with a more open mind, with more excitement, and things just roll on each other. So, but again, at the end of the day, they choose to or don't, and that's not up to me.
And I think that is the biggest struggle translating from higher ed to K-12.
Yeah.
Because
I know there's different rules and standards and all kinds of things going on, but even in K-12, like teachers can still create that same sort of customized experience. And the one caveat I'll say here that I always try to make sure I say, and I try to make sure I acknowledge, it takes a lot of training to figure out how to use these things.
Yes.
And teachers, especially K-12, don't have a lot of bandwidth. I would argue college teachers have a lot more bandwidth than most are willing to admit. K-12 not. So I get it, right? I get the problem of like, this is one more thing. I got to learn one more thing. I don't have to,
Yeah.
acknowledging all of that. It's possible to create those kind of experiences for the students.
Yeah.
I don't think it was physically or mentally possible before, especially in a K-12 space. Higher
Yeah.
ed, teach two classes, 75 minutes twice a week. I got a lot of time on my hands where I can do things, right? I don't
Yeah.
teach 8 classes, different classes every day, all day.
Right.
God bless them. No,
Yeah.
no way could I do that.
Yeah, that was me
100%.
in November. That was me. I just left in November, right before Thanksgiving break. That was, yeah, but it's a very stressful world too. And
Right?
again, so here, like, I share that with teachers. I'm very open about that. My personality and how I worked, I learned a lot. And getting obsessed and going down the rabbit hole of AI in the summer of 2023, which was the first summer that I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
I made a conscious decision. I'm not going to work this summer. I'm going to take a break. I've been working like crazy my entire life. I'm going to take a summer off. And so instead, I filled it with, I'm going to learn about this thing also, you know. But I went down that road and I took that time. I used that time as class.
Yeah.
And my 8-hour days were like signing up for all the programs and playing with them, trying to mess with them, trying to see what are they good at, what are they not good at. I don't expect people to do that.
Right.
I never expect people to do that. So
Right.
how do you, and this is what I'm struggling with in my new job. So I am always open to like new ideas here. So like how, with all that being said, the bandwidth and how much it takes to kind of learn this, what are some like unique ways? Because I know you do like the consulting piece as well on the side. So what are some ways that schools can kind of weave it in or do it? Because I know here, I just heard of a school, this blew my mind. I just heard of a school that next school year is losing 4 professional development days. Like they're losing them.
Well,
And those are being turned into instructional days. And I was like, so where do you get that back? Or I guess you just don't get it back,
right.
right? And so what are some what are some ways that could help kind of deal with that idea of not having enough time?
Yeah. Um,
It's a big question. I know.
no, no,
I ask
no.
big questions.
Well, but I think schools that I work with, and I worked with some high schools, but mostly in higher ed.
Yeah.
But part of it is there needs to, for things to really be successful, for something to really kind of take root, more than just here's this crazy lady over here doing some weird stuff. Um, Administrative champion and a few champions across different disciplines, right?
Oh,
So,
okay.
so whatever the principal, dean, what, like some administrative champion that's going to be able to like clear the path and deal with some red tape, put some resources at work. So there's got to be somebody. They don't need to be a master of this stuff, but they need to understand it. They can't just be a mouthpiece. They need to really kind of understand and be familiar with it. And a couple teachers from different disciplines. One has to be humanities because
Yeah.
that's where so much of the pushback comes from. So you need, like, I always say, like, get a couple humanities people together and make sure one of them is really anti.
Oh, I like that.
Because, well, it's
Yeah.
the same thing I tell the students. I go, you want the friction. You want the friction in the room, right? And you need
Yeah.
somebody who's going to have that perspective and is going to bring that into the room. Hopefully they can be congenial and everybody else can.
Yeah.
But like you need that. And you need some more like analytical type people. You know what I mean? And so you just put together a group like that and you give them a little bit of resources, you give them a little bit of time. I don't know how that looks. You got to, but it's a thing to say, like at a school level or a district level or whatever, you look at it and you go, is this important enough? If it is important enough, figure it out. Like you can figure it out. If it's not important enough, awesome.
Yeah.
Communicate that,
Yep.
right? But whatever it is, like be clear in the messaging.
Yeah.
And don't mix it. Don't say it's important enough, but not provide the runway and provide resources and time.
I,
Because otherwise you're left with teachers who, like yourself, you're doing it on your own. You're more than likely getting burnt out because they probably don't have a summer to just kind of do nothing else but go crazy on it.
right,
You know what I mean?
right.
And nobody wins. So, and there's people, right? That I mean, not trying to be a salesperson, but there's people. Myself, there's a lot of other people
Yeah.
who do this,
There's
who
me's.
help.
There's me's that exist.
Exactly.
You know, yeah.
And there's people who help, and there's people who are willing, and there's people who had expertise in saying, how do you build these kind of systems, and how do you do this in an efficient way, and how do you
Yeah.
do this in a responsible way? And so again, are the resources committed?
You hit the nail on the head there. And that is something I'm trying to build here,
Mhm.
something I'm trying to put together. I'm still new, so I'm still trying to feel out. My whole job is new.
Yeah,
So there's very much we need to figure out what to do with you
sure.
sort of thing, which is kind of nice for me because I came in with a whole like plate of ideas, and it's like, we want to pull on, which one of these do we want to go down?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're doing now is we're just kind of going down these different paths and seeing what's working. So,
And I think too, especially in educational institutions, bringing an outsider in makes a lot of sense because
mhm,
any insider has baggage, and there's
yeah.
politics that come with it, right? So,
Hmm.
at my school, there's somebody at the provost's office who's been kind of charged with this. There's people in each college. They're trying to have it trickle down. It's really difficult because
Yeah.
it's all internal stuff. So
Sure.
I don't know, whatever it is, the 50-mile rule or 100-mile rule, whatever, right? But it's like if you bring somebody else in from the outside at some point and have that outside perspective, I think it can really make a difference because you just escape all of that mess.
I was doing side work while I was still teaching. So I was doing some trainings here through the IU. So I did a little bit of work here before I actually worked here. But but they had brought in Matt Miller, who does a lot of talks, lots of schools all over the place. They had brought in Matt Miller. And I, since then, have built a relationship with Matt Miller. And I was like, they have me right here. And another friend of mine who you may or may not be connected to on LinkedIn, Marissa Sadler Holder, Teaching with Machines, she said that to me too when we had a little meeting of our own. But she was like, sometimes you need that person from far away. And she brought up the same thing, the 50, 100, whatever
Yep.
it was, you need somebody from outside that bubble.
Yep.
And then once you have that person come in, then you realize the person that you have there is on the same wavelength as that person. And now you're like, oh, well, now we have this person. So,
Yeah.
and Matt Miller essentially said the same thing too. So it was just like, it was a cool thing to learn. And now it's funny because now I have this rule. So now I am kind of like the outside guy.
Mhm.
I'm now kind of the outside guy. So it's scary, terrifying, and exciting all at the same time.
Yeah, right. That's
Because
good.
now it's like, wait a minute, people are actually going to like listen to me. That's kind of scary. So I need to make sure I have my message honed in there.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So the focus of this whole kind of show, the idea is built around this idea of curiosity. Love my Ted Lasso quote, be curious, not judgmental. So that's kind of how I am sort of loosely putting together these episodes,
Yeah.
getting into my curiosities. And the thing I want to do here at the end is get into like your curiosities. So like to close it up, like what is the question or a question or multiple questions that you have about AI in education or education in general that maybe there's not an answer to yet? Something you're curious about future wise down the road, or something that keeps you up at night or bugging your head like
Yeah.
me.
Not much keeps me up at night. I sleep well.
That's great.
Yeah.
You're lucky.
I think, a part of what I always struggle with or I'm always curious about and trying to fight for is like how do we give students more autonomy of the process? Um, and move away from I'm 50 plus, move away from the experiences we had.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, the direct instruction and the
Yeah.
fill in the blank tests and blue books and all that nonsense. You know what I mean? And so I'm always just like, how are we going to institutionally as an industry, like, how do we move away from that? How do we shift the whole tide? Because I've never experienced an industry that has as much inertia. I don't think there is one. And, you know, as I don't see that it's changed at all
Right.
in forever. Right. And so
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't keep me up at night, but that's the thing I fight against all the time is, I don't mind throwing myself on grenades. I don't mind taking arrows. Like, I don't mind any of that stuff. But like, what can I do to move that along and to be somebody out front where if people see that and want to tag along or want to jump on the ship, cool, right? And if people want to fling some arrows, awesome. I'd love to know why, right? Like, I want to learn from them.
Yeah.
Because out of that
Right.
curiosity, I kind of better understand how people think differently than me, and that's good. There's no harm comes from that. So, I mean, that's the big one. Is really like, how do we give students more autonomy over their experience, and how do we just break the inertia as a whole and just shift the whole tide of it? Because it sucks. It totally sucks. I mean, it's such a monstrous investment from students, from parents, from teachers, everybody, all these people involved in this whole thing. It's a massive, massive investment, and I just think it's been such a waste for so long.
Yeah. No, and we had a speaker come to a school I was working at. His name was Jimmy Casas, and he's, big, loud, boisterous. He's good. He's a very good speaker. Mm-hmm. But I will never forget the one line, because he used it a million times. He would talk about all these situations that teachers face, and he would keep saying, they didn't teach you that in teacher school. They didn't teach you that in teacher school, right? And so you get this idea of like, what did I actually learn in teacher school?
Right.
Actually learn. And a lot of it, back to that, I have never thought of the word pedagogy. I have never thought about that word more than in the last 3 years.
Right.
Since ChatGPT.
Right.
Even in college, I remember like I learned about it and I'm like, that's a weird word. And, it's like, oh, how you teach. Okay, cool. I just do it. I never really thought about it, right? I just do it. With AI, now I'm forced to like actually think about that. Like, wait a minute, if I teach this way, what good is that?
Right.
Because AI could just do that.
Right.
So it's like, good as that. Curious as well. I would love to see that question get answered. And I would love to see a moment where a state, a school, somebody's like, you know what? We're just not going to do the standardized testing. And I want to let my teachers roll with it. I want to let the students. Kyle Wagner on LinkedIn about his student-centered learning. Big thing is the student-centered learning. And he talked about Kong, where the whole thing so student-centered, and these students are on like a different level.
Yeah.
The way they interact with people, because they've had so much autonomy over their learning experience from elementary school.
Yeah.
To see that different thought process. Whereas here you have Marshawn Lynch showing up to an interview. I'm here so I do not get fined.
Right.
I'm here because my mom or dad made me be here. The thing, they get to live in the design, experience the design, and they want to be there because it's a different design than anything they've ever done before.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that, someday they might be like, but again, that's where it's like, okay, here's the autonomy part. Well, what would you do differently?
Right.
Right. So if you don't like this design, what would you design? How would you do this? If you don't want to use the chatbot to do this assignment, what are you going to do instead?
Yeah.
You have that autonomy,
yep.
Right? And I don't think that's a hard sell for especially high school. I don't think that's a hard sell.
I think it is, because if it isn't, then why hasn't it worked?
Yeah. Well, oh, geez. Yep. There it is. That's an even better place to end. Look at you. You're good at this podcast thing. I'll get there someday.
You're fine. For the lights. You're doing good.
Doan, thank you so much. Appreciate all the time that you gave here and all the work that you're doing. Where can people find you? What's the best way? I mean, obviously I found you on LinkedIn. But,
yeah. LinkedIn is main place. Then I also do a free newsletter. It's How to Teach AI. It's on Substack, and it's a free newsletter. Once a week, I throw stuff out. It's very practical, very much like, here's how you do shit.
Yep. Useful.
That's it, right?
Yep.
Like, use it tomorrow. So those are really the two main places. And I always tell people, like, I want to share what I do and what I know and what I've learned, and I want to learn what other people are trying. And so I just love connecting with people. Like, this happened out of it. That's wonderful. You get to meet new people and make some friendships and collaborations. If people are looking for help, as a consultant, I've got those services available. So but you find it all there. And then my website is Doan Winkel. So it's DOANWINKEL.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, again, Doan, thanks for being curious.
Absolutely.
And thanks for being a connection of mine. We'll see you next time here on Artificial Intelligence Real Talk, the Curiosity Connection. I don't know who we're going to connect with next, but I bet you it's somebody from LinkedIn. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Doan.